My name is Erin Schaick, and I am a junior communication major from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I spent about 2.5 weeks in China from the middle of May through the beginning of June. I'm really glad that I went on the Maymester. I learned a lot, I met a lot of really interesting people, and pretty much just had the trip of a lifetime in experiencing the culture of China. One of the faculty leaders for our trip to China was politics and government professor Marty Farrell.
Just this year, China became the second largest economy in the world. And this is from a position of, again, 30 years ago, it probably wasn't in the top 30. They've had tremendous economic growth. Their economic development and their urbanization have broken all kinds of records. So it's just a dynamic player in the world scene right now, and we thought students should have an opportunity to get a first-hand look at what's going on, because regardless of their career, in one way or the other, they're probably going to be dealing directly or indirectly with something to do with China over the course of their lifetimes, and this would be a good chance to give them a first-hand introduction.
One of the many reasons I decided to go on the China Maymester was because of how foreign and unique China is. There are so many interesting things about China that aren't really widely understood, like how the retired community just gets together in the parks and does Tai Chi, and their love for American pop music, their beautiful modern universities, the underground seafood markets, their Peking duck dinner, or the dumpling dinner that is composed completely of dumplings. How do you feel about duck?
Pretty good. It's pretty good duck.
Danny, how do you feel about duck?
How do you what?
How do you feel about duck?
It's good. Until it ends up on my shirt.
Emma, how was your
Had duck a couple weeks ago.
jellyfish? Yeah. After a few days of eating squid, dumplings, and sticky rice, we decided to try our taste buds at Chinese fast food.
Anyone still need a chicken?
Opinions over here? Good? After spending days in Ripon in crash courses on Chinese history, it all seemed worth it after we traveled 2 hours outside of Beijing to the Great Wall of China. We learned that the steps we were climbing were over 600 years old, built during the Ming Dynasty, and were originally built to protect the Chinese Empire from nomadic groups like the Manchurians and Mongolians. A small section of the wall near where we walked was built in 220 BC by the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. This kind of timeline put life in perspective for me. It made me think about how young and historically irrelevant America is. It made me think of globalization and the world's interconnectedness, which is why this trip was so influential for me. Tiananmen Square in Beijing is easily one of the world's most famous public squares. And especially to the Western world, Tiananmen Square is most famous for the 1989 summer protests, which were done by students and civilians who were protesting the authoritarian government by the Chinese Communist Party. It was a very peculiar and almost eerie feeling walking through the square, as an American especially, knowing what had happened 21 years ago, almost to the date, and recognizing how passionate people were about their government and their own individual freedoms. It was also pretty cool to see the monument that had been erected in honor of the Revolution of 1949.
Hi! We are in the inner square, Tiananmen Square, in Beijing again.
Forbidden City, come on.
Of the Forbidden City. Inner city of the Forbidden City. My apologies. You can just head it down there.
Alright.
We're having a great time so far. It's hot, we're sweaty, but it's great.
Yeah. Woo! One of the biggest surprises for me when I got to China was, I think, just how beautiful the place was. I had heard a lot about the pollution, like air pollution and things like that, but I never expected to see so much beautiful landscaping and so much green everywhere. There were so many flowers and pavilions and things just The architecture just really allowed for a lot of green space and a lot of trees and really made the place beautiful. Xi'an was the second city that we visited while we were in China, and it was the innermost city in the country that we saw, and it also looked the coolest at night. Thanks to our tour guide Chen and our bus driver, we survived China's crazy traffic jams and bike culture. Their disregard for traffic laws, but simultaneous understanding of the roads, really impressed us Americans. We occasionally got to stop at some touristy places and buy some gifts, and we often debated whether or not we got ripped off or whether our haggling skills were actually useful.
Panda chopsticks for 60 yuan, so just under $10.
Yay.
Which is okay because they're nice chopsticks, but I probably got ripped on that too.
Thanks to our economics lectures at Beijing University, we were able to understand a little bit more about China's economy. Shanghai was the last city that we visited while we were in China, and Shanghai is home to the Bund, which is a financial district, and it has a lot of really cool historic buildings that were once consulates from countries all over the world, and has lots of banks, and kind of reminded us of Times Square in New York City. One of my goals while I was in China was to see panda bears, and in our last day in Shanghai, I finally saw them. There isn't really one memory that sticks out from my trip to China. It's a combination of riding the metro and going to the Shanghai Zoo and seeing pandas for the first time, which was awesome, and riding through the hutongs on one of those rickshaws being pulled by a biker, Rusty deciding that he wanted to eat bamboo one day, and seeing the architecture in the Ming tombs, going through the shopping districts, getting to touch real silkworms, and meeting new people and seeing thousands of years of history just makes me really appreciate how much fun I had, and looking back, I realize how much I was able to learn going abroad, and I really appreciate the opportunity that Ripon College gave me to travel to China as a college student, because I believe it's important to witness these cultural differences firsthand, and this experience really allowed me to learn and become a more understanding person in the global community that we have, and I'm so thankful for that opportunity.